Everybody, Invisiblekatana here with my review for The Mandalorian Season 3, Episode 3, The Convert. Super late with this one, of course. Been saying this a couple of times in all the reviews. I've been just cramming everything together tonight because my laptop died last week, which I mentioned actually in my last review. It was like, I didn't even know when that would go up. So finally got like at least a pseudo-temporary solution as of now. So guys, getting a ridiculous amount of recording, and it is currently midnight on Wednesday. It is, so you've probably already seen the next episode at this point, but I wanted to review this episode before I get into that one. And it was a fun episode. It was an hour-long episode, which was really nice, and it definitely didn't go the way I expected it to, with which I think, you know, kind of the same for pretty much everybody else, where it was like, okay, first off, started off with an amazing action sequence. They've been doing a really good job having just enough action in every single episode, which is not something that we had before, where every episode had action to it. And at least not to this extent where it was like they either have, you know, obviously the first episode was like, you know, tons of different stuff. Episode 2 was like, we got the Darksaber, we got, you know, a short fight with Din, and then we got a short fight with Bo-Katan, but it was like, hey, here's the different style. So it wasn't just like, here's the Darksaber, which that's all I need, but it was also a story element to be like, hey, check this out, he's still struggling with it. Hey, check this out. It's like nothing. It's like holding a butter knife. It's just, it moves. It moves like a lightsaber. It's made of light, so of course it is. But you know, like, here's the story element of like, here's the guy who wielded, here's the woman who has wielded it, and how she's just a master at it. So I love that. And this, of course, we got more. I can't say space action, you know, in air combat. And it was really good. Them going through the canyons and stuff. Bo-Katan in her amazing ship. Also, I realized this, I'm looking at my thing, it's so hard to see Din's helmet in like its actual detail because it's just reflective. So all you can see is just like a big spotlight because you can see my light reflecting off of it, and it's just dark. Like you can barely see, like, it looks really nice. But here it is up close. Yeah, you can see like much better that way. But there we go. It's funny, it's like it's barely anywhere, but it's like it looks like it's in shadow because of that. At least on my screen. It depends on your screen, you know, how dark it really looks. But it's like, man, it's so reflective. It's just reflecting a bunch of brown and you can't see anything. It's almost weird camouflage. Just randomly noticed that while I was doing it. But love the action that we got in this episode. A lot of people reference Thrawn because of this idea of the ships going in to distract them and lead them away from the castle, and then another group comes in, blows up the castle. They brought in the bombers. I was super excited about that. I was like, dang, they're going deep. It was like they got the interceptors, they got the bombers. I was like, man, they're not effing around in this episode. They're just pulling stuff. So that was really cool. And people were like, this is the exact maneuver Thrawn used in an episode of Rebels. And I was like, okay, you know, they're leaning towards it. Obviously Ahsoka and stuff, they had the reference when they do hyperspeed travel in episode 1. It was like, holy crap, Rebels reference. So you know, it's definitely there. I didn't notice that because it was just like, it's been forever since I've seen Rebels, so you know, there's that element to it. But also it was just like, okay, you know, and they do kind of reference it where she mentions like the warlord thing, and then it's like, this is a lot for like just some random warlord. Like this is pretty nuts. This is an intense amount of stuff, you know, that's coming down on our heads right now. So it could have been a Thrawn reference, and that would certainly be cool. Like, it's gonna happen. We're gonna have Ahsoka. I don't know if we should expect Thrawn to actually show up. I almost feel like, you know, a lot of people said that, but I was like, it would be weird if it was Thrawn. It, almost defeats the purpose a little bit. But at the same time, when Ahsoka first came in last season, she was asking someone who was at least a former imperial officer. I think that's kind of how it was played out. Like, that woman had retired to that town, but she used to be, you know, within the empire. She asked her, like, you know, where's Thrawn? So clearly people know a little bit about where he is. He's not just poof, he, you know, into Rebels and nobody knows what the F happened. So clearly he still has some ties to the empire. Maybe he has made his way back in, and because of what he's already been through and his rank at, you know, what he was in Rebels anyway, he's able to kind of, you know, keep things going. So, you know, it probably was a reference to him, especially considering the Rebels tie-in. It probably was referencing Thrawn, just without fully giving that away. Looking forward to whatever they give us, though. The crossover thing, I'm looking forward to it. So we're gonna see Ahsoka. Who knows, maybe we'll see Luke again. That could end up happening. People might be blown away because, of course, so many people didn't watch Book of Boba Fett. So aside from the confusion of like, well, how did Grogu get back with him, they might be like, oh snap, Luke is here. Luke's been here again. Like, it wasn't just the last season. Like, oh no, they've, like, we've seen characters talk with Luke. So that might be a funny thing where a bunch of people might be missing out on that as well. But I'm looking forward to it. Whenever we get to all our crossover stuff, I'm sure it'll be entertaining. But that leads into the next part of the episode, which is basically the rest of the episode. And that is Coruscant, because once they have, that epic opening, they have their sequence. It's like, here's where we're going to escape to, which of course is the other Mandalorians, which we'll get to that at the end. We turn over to Coruscant, and it's like, okay, this is what's happening. We have the guy whose name I cannot remember, who every time they said his name, I kept thinking of Peter Cushing, because both his names start with a P, but his last name was like, it was really close to Cushing, but it was like Pushing or something, it was something like that, Pression maybe. But every time they said that, I was just like, I keep thinking about Peter Cushing. For anyone who might not know who Peter Cushing is, he's Grand Moff Tarkin from the very first Star Wars film, and he was also the guy who was CG in Rogue One. If you saw Rogue One, that guy that's him, Grand Moff Tarkin. He's also in Rebels as well. So I kept thinking that just because his name was so similar. And like the actual guy, and obviously not Grand Moff Tarkin, but actually Peter Cushing. So kept thinking about that. Obviously, they don't look alike in any regard. It's literally, trust me, if you don't know what the Grand Moff Tarkin looks like, look them up. They don't look the same. It was literally just the name. But going through this episode with him, it was a very interesting journey. And this was yet another episode where I don't know if this will continue, but this episode for sure had like double meaning. Because at first it was like, okay, it's the convert. They're totally going to have Bo-Katan join the people by the end. And then it cuts and it goes to Coruscant. And then you have this guy who, he's the convert of the, at least focuses mostly on him. They both are, but it has that double meaning where it's the convert. It applies to two different people. And this is a man who is being rehabilitated into normal life, helping the New Republic, which they had a great commentary on that with like the super rich people is like, the Empire, New Republic, I don't effing know. We try not to get involved because we're rich, ha ha ha, and then they leave. And it's just like, okay, this is how it plays out. And so he's trying to do his best to be re-implemented into society in a good way and help the New Republic, because he's one of the people that does feel like what he did was wrong. Kept his head down, followed orders, and he followed some dark orders, especially with him doing like some of the cloning stuff. Who knows what that he was truly involved in. But throughout the episode, we have him, and then we have one of Grand Moff Tarkin. We have Moff Gideon. There it is. We have one of Moff Gideon's crew, and we saw her like, I think only one time. I think she was only in like that little recap that they showed in the beginning of this episode. And so she's there too. And it's like, he even says it like, oh, I didn't expect to see anyone from Moff Gideon. I'm gonna, now that I've said Grand Moff Tarkin so many times, that's what I'm gonna think every time I say it. Fortunately, I can move past the names pretty soon. But it was like, I didn't expect anyone from Moff Gideon's ship. And then the other couple of guys are like, holy crap, like, I heard this happen to him. I heard that happen. So they're keeping it a mystery. It's like, oh, I heard this, mind flayer and this and that. I heard he was in prison, or he escaped, this and that. So I like how they handled that, where it's left ambiguous. He's somewhere, but we don't know where just yet. And it's like, hey, we're all just trying to rehabilitate, get back into society. What we did was wrong. Let's kind of just move on to the next phase of things. Let's, truly help the New Republic. And then things take a turn. It starts off real simple. Most of the episode, nice and easy. They're hanging out. She gets them the biscuits, which are super cool. They look like little lemon bars to me. That's what they look like. That specific color, I was like, those look like those powdered lemon bars you can get. And I don't like lemon, so unfortunately, they didn't look very appetizing to me, even though he loved them. But starts off with a little gift. He's eating them at work and stuff like that. And then it goes through, it's like, he talks to the droids like, do you have any bad feelings towards the New Republic, anything like that? And so he's going through, and then they're having their conversations. They go out and they're having like little light up popsicles and stuff like that. They have the peak of Coruscant, the only part of the surface that you can actually see on the top level, which I thought was super cool. And apparently that draws back to like super old comics and drawings and stuff that Ralph McQuarrie did a long time ago. So that was actually really cool that they did that. Of course, I found that out later. I didn't know about that, but I thought that was really cool. I was like, oh, that's really neat. And so they go through, and apparently they were playing some song. I forgot who it was. I think it was like maybe it was like the First Order theme or something like that, and it was like playing in the background at the carnival, or the thing that they were at, and it was just like kind of an upbeat version of it, but that's what was playing. It was like one of the villain themes. I'm pretty sure it was the New Order, or First Order, sorry. So I was like, oh, I didn't catch that, but I thought that was really cool too. And so they're going through, they have their little moment, they're playing around. She's like, hey, Jim, go ahead and touch the rock, nothing's gonna happen. Little droid from I don't know why, but in my head I thought like it reminds me of that droid from Flubber. I know, random thing to reference, but I was like, that's what I think of now when I think of that. So he gets busted, he freaks out. She's like, you should have seen your face. They're laughing about it, they have a good time. And then things kind of continue on. It's like, hey, you want to do good, for the New Republic. And he's like, yeah, like I feel like if they would just let me do some extra work, like I know that what I was doing was bad, but what I can do could be great, could literally save tons and tons of lives. I think it would be really good if they let me do it. And of course they won't. It's like, it's completely forbidden. He's like, okay, that makes sense. And then of course he's getting teased a little more. It's like, hey, you want to do good. I think they'd see that if you did good. Like, what if we just went, got you like a small kit, do a couple things here and there, and we let them see that you're good, for the New Republic. And it's like, yeah, have their whole sequence. They go on the train, they jump through the cars. I thought for sure, apparently I was totally misread the sequence. When they were going through, and I forgot her name because she says her name in this episode like towards the end, but I forgot what she said. She bumps into a guy, and I was like, she stole his ticket, and then she's gonna bump into like another random person, and then it's gonna be like, oh, we, kind of the classic thing where someone steals a ticket, and it's like, oh, I was just moving up, train cars. That's all I was doing. Like, here's my ticket, and then the droid goes on its way. That's not what happened. She just bumped into the guy. I thought for sure, I was like, oh, she pickpocketed him, got his ticket, she'll do it to a second person, and then they both have tickets, and then they're good to go. But that doesn't happen. They jump trains, they get to the very end, and then it's like, all right, we gotta jump off. It's like, huh? And then so of course they jump off, and then they go through, they're in the shipyard, which it's Coruscant, it's huge. I think they even reference they have trillions of people, which is so wild. But they go to like the ship graveyard pretty much, which they just had in an episode of Clone Wars. I think it was like maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. The clones, the team went through and they went on a ship as well. So that I thought was pretty cool. They obviously went on a clone era ship, and this was obviously one of the more imperial ships. So I thought that was really cool. They're going through, random noises are popping up and stuff like that. They get what they need, and then they end up taking off. And I'm pretty sure she actually took that small vial. That's when I instantly was like, oh, here it is. Here's the twist. Because she was acting super weird, and she picked up that vial and she looked at it for a super long time. And it's this tiny little thing. And she was just staring and was like, and I think she put it in her pocket. I can't even remember at this point. But that was when the turn really kicked in for me. And I was like, oh, here it is. Something bad's happening. Like, what's her deal? So of course, random noises start popping up. It's like, okay, we need to get out of here. I'll keep watch. And then of course, nothing really happened. I thought someone was going to come in at that point and she wasn't going to say anything. And then, they keep going. Then they basically run outside. And this is where I have to ask, maybe you guys know the answer. What the F was the lie that she told where they clearly both came out of the ship? Was it just, oh yeah, he's holding a box. They're both in a super illegal place to be, but he's holding a box. She's totally innocent. This guy though, he's really bad. It makes no sense whatsoever to me. It's as crazy as, oh my God, I forgot to talk about that. That was the beginning of this episode. It's been a week since I've seen it. I forgot to talk about that. I wanted to talk about that too. Din falling in the water still makes no sense. It makes less sense now that they explained it than it did when we had to guess in episode 2, because he flat out says, I didn't realize, the mines were so deep. And it's like, oh, it wasn't. It was because of some of the bombing and it made the caverns even lower. And I was like, what are you talking about? He was 1,500 miles away, and it still makes no sense whatsoever. I'm glad that the thing at the end made no sense, and the thing at the beginning was exactly the same way. I still don't understand how he fell and went like 1,000,000 miles away. It's even dumber now, because it made no sense when it was like, well, did the Mythosaur grab him and then just let him go for no reason? That's weird. It makes way more sense that happened than he fell and she jumped in like 3 seconds later. And he was 1,000,000 miles away. It wasn't like a scene where she jumped in to save him. It was a full-on sequence. She was underwater for so long, she had to change tactics and turn her light off so that she could see in the pitch black where his light was randomly popping up. That is a super long time. And he fell. There was just a current underwater, I'm assuming. It makes no sense. And they kind of explained it. And I'm like, that just makes it even dumber. You actually fell, but then you fell a million miles. Why was he passed out? I mean, he was under there for a super long time, and I guess technically his thing wasn't pressurized, so there was no air in it like whatsoever. I think it makes no sense. So I'm glad I remembered that, because of the ending part that made no sense. But yeah, that was really dumb. I was like, they really should have just had a sequence where Bo-Katan drops down and she just goes straight down. Like, it's Beskar. I don't see how it could even be that heavy. He's walking around with it. If it drops you that fast, there's no way that it's lightweight. It doesn't work like that. Like, I know there's buoyancy and no buoyancy and armor and this and that, but I'm like, there's no way you can fall that far that fast. And it's just, yeah, this armor is really heavy. It's like, then you can't possibly be wearing it. Like, it couldn't drop you that fast, but still be light enough to just stroll around it. Like, that's not how that works. Like, it can't. It drops you that hard underwater, but you can walk around with it like it's no big deal. It's like, no. I know he's tough and he's strong and like Mandalorians are super cool, but you would have to just straight up have superhuman strength. It makes no sense. So wanted to mention that. Glad I remembered that because of the ending not making sense. But that was just dumb. So if you guys have an answer for that as well, like how that makes any sense, please help me understand, because that was dumb. And now back to the ending, which is also kind of dumb, because it's like, how does that work? What in the world could have possibly happened where they capture him, but they let her go? Did she say like, hey, I'm going to lead him to this thing? Because if that's the case, it's stupid that they would have been there for so long instead of it just being, they got to the ship and then it's like, hey, you're under arrest for even coming here. It was like, no, he has to go through the whole process, do this and do that. And then they come out and then they're captured. And it's like, I don't understand how this makes any sense. What could she have said that would let her be free, but he ends up getting arrested? And once again, if she said it ahead of time, why would they need to wait? It's already an illegal thing that's even happening. The fact that she would have to pretend, get on the train without having to take all this extra stuff. It's just like, this doesn't make any sense. It's just weird. Like, all she would have to really do is report him. I mean, I guess that it makes sense. I mean, heck, she could have even planted the snacks there and just been like, hey, look, he has these. Those are only imperial snacks. Like, where could he have possibly gotten those? Because they even reference the fact that you can't buy those normally. So if she was just gonna rat him out and get him arrested to do the whole mind flare thing, that's all she'd have to do, because he took them. What's he gonna do? Be like, well, I don't know where they came from. Like, that sounds like some BS to me. And so it just makes no sense. It's like, how does this work as a scheme? Like, as an evil scheme? Like, it's just, they should both have been arrested, and then they just weren't. Like, he was, she wasn't. And I'm like, there's no part of that makes sense, where if she told him ahead of time, why would they give them extra time to like go all the way into the ship and come all the way back? I was like, just, he's there. That's illegal in itself. Boom, you proved that you were right. You were telling the truth. He wanted to go there. He could lie and be like, well, she convinced me to go, which is what he tries to do at the end anyway. It's a trap. I remember that was a funny little reference. And then Mon Calamari just looks and there's nothing. It's like, that was a good one. But yeah, that didn't make a lot of sense to me. Admittedly, neither does everyone leaving. And then she's like, I just want to stay behind and, just kind of be with him in this moment. It's like, of course you do. And the dude leaves out. If you turn a knob all the way up and a dude's brain is fried or wiped or whatever is going to happen, even if you turn it back down and someone comes out, it's like, that's different. He's acting funny. He's like, this is as if we turned it all the way up. But that doesn't make sense. Only you were here. Like, it's just weird. It doesn't work when you do stuff like that, where it's super obvious. Like, this guy basically died or he had his mind completely erased. They're like, no, you'll just be nicer. I think you'd act different from feeling happier versus your entire memory got wiped, or however they explain it, because it's like he'd still be him, but somehow his memory would be wiped. I'm not sure how far advanced that would be, but it's just like, well, that doesn't really work. So somehow she ratted him out, even though they were both there, and they waited till they went all the way through the ship. Seems odd to me, instead of just getting him when they first get there. But they do all that. He's the bad guy. She's not the bad guy. Dude leaves. Everyone else already left out. She turns the thing all the way up, fries his brain, mind wipe. And it's like, like, it's Star Wars. They don't register like this meter was turned up, this much power was used. This is how people act when they're, like I said, happy versus mind wiped. There's a huge difference, I have to assume. So that was another really weird thing at the end where it was like, how's that not going to be obvious? No one was there but you. It just fits that you were the person that did that. Especially when, I would assume they have a lack of trust, even though, it's like, hey, for every failure, there's a success like you, or for every success, there's a failure, however the guy phrased it. And it's just like, not weird. Like, not weird at all, huh? Weird to me. But random plot holes aside that were just very, like, right in my effing face. Still enjoyed the episode. And of course, after that, we go back to the Mandalorians. It was exactly what I expected from, even the title of the episode, of course. Bo, Din, they go in and it's like, hey, bathed in the living waters. I think we all were wondering how the F is he going to prove it. It's just like, here's a flask of water, like, and I was thinking in my head, it's so stupid, but it was like, I have the thing. And then, dude, they just look at it, it's like, this is spit, and just throw it. For some reason, that was in my head. But she takes the thing and dips it in, and then like the water actually like vibrates against the regular water. And I was like, okay, now I understand the living waters thing. So that was actually very cool. And apparently there is a helmet in there. I didn't notice that, but I watched a review and the guy mentioned like his TV was super bright or whatever. And he was like, I could see that. There was like a helmet that was actually down in there. So I thought that was cool. That might be a reference to later on where it was like, oh, okay, that this specific Beskar helmet or whatever was technically like forged within the waters or cooled in the waters of water that was, I don't know, spirited or blessed or whatever by the living waters. It, that little vial wouldn't like fill up that whole thing, so it was kind of blessed by the living waters of Mandalore. So that could come into play a little bit later on, who knows. But they do exactly what I expected, which was Bo-Katan went in. They referenced the fact that she went in to save Din after he bathed, so technically she did as well. And it's like, yeah, I did that. And it's like, well, have you taken your helmet off? And she's like, well, no, I haven't. And it's like, hey, seems like you walked away again. You're both back in if you want to be. And that's where things are right now. And it's like, Bo-Katan was abandoned. She lost the Darksaber. She saves the ruler of Mandalore and is now in with his people. Because they were, totally separated. She hated him. She doesn't deal with those people. Now they're kind of buddy-buddy, and she's back in with that crew. And it's like, feels like it's leading towards a challenge. Paz Vizsla probably won't challenge him again because he lost. So I doubt he'll do it, but Bo-Katan might. And if she gets that Darksaber, it is over for Din. I don't think she'll kill him or anything, but obviously, they'll fight. She'll be able to rule Mandalore again, and she'll have, even though she didn't really follow them before, she might now just to kind of keep them all in line. So very interesting, very excited to see where they take that. Definitely enjoyed this episode. Random plot points, plot holes aside, still definitely a fun episode. Love the action, of course. Coruscant, fantastic. No 1313 reference. Would have been great to have seen that, and hurtful. I still wish they made that game so bad, but definitely enjoyed this episode for sure. Very excited. I think the next episode is called The Foundling, and I believe Carl Weathers, because he tweeted about it, he actually directed this episode, which is I think his second episode. I forgot what the other one was that he directed. Actually, I think it was it episode 4 or 5, I think, of season 2, like the crazy episode where they go off to like that imperial facility, like that was like right outside of town, which ended up being an amazing episode. And it seemed like it was gonna be like a filler outside of the story, and then it was like they had a whole effing chase sequence of speeder bikes. I think he directed that episode, like one of my favorites for sure. Is astounding. Another super long episode too. So I think he directed today's episode, I guess, by the time you guys see this. Today's episode, which is called The Foundling, which seems like it'll obviously tie a lot into Grogu, who definitely said this is the way in this episode. He would, like, they were saying it in the ship, and then he kind of grumbled it, and they even look at him and kind of look at each other like, yo, is he talking? So end of the season, he's gonna say some full-on word. So I can't wait to see how that ends up playing out. But definitely enjoyed this episode. Can't wait to see what the next one holds for us, as far as how far we're moving along in the story, where they end up going, who they talk to, all that good stuff. But we'd love to know your thoughts on this one, so please put your comments down in the comment section below. Let me know your favorite parts about it, least favorite parts about it. Super shameless plug, this weekend I will be streaming Resident Evil 4, so if you guys want to check out my streaming channel, I'd greatly appreciate that. You guys can check the link down in the description below. I played the RE4 demo because of the laptop dying. That's just straight off of the PS5, so there's no face cam or anything, but definitely check that out if you guys are interested. I would greatly appreciate it. Check out my old streams and stuff. But this weekend, RE4 for sure. I'm so hyped for that. Like I said, I greatly appreciate you guys checking that out. And of course, I'm going to be doing a review of this week's episode of not only The Mandalorian, but also The Bad Batch. So definitely check those out, and my review for The Bad Batch that I just did, and everything else I've done. Anything you guys want to check out on my channel, I'd greatly appreciate all that stuff. But like I said, want to know what you guys thought about this episode, where we're headed for the season as well. So please put your comments down in the comment section below. And of course, thanks for watching.